For many years, I've suffered from noise sensitivity. I probably still do. It's just not bothering me right now, which is nothing short of a miracle. Um, and, you know, like they say in the 12-step programs, let me just go ahead and qualify. I'll just tell you what my situation was and what happened. And you can take what you need and leave the rest. So as a child, I never really had a problem with noise sensitivity. At one point, we even lived in a pretty noisy town. We lived in Puerto Vallarta for a while, and there was always a lot of noises and partying and, uh, you know, a lot of wildlife and stuff like that, and never bothered me. If anything, I was always kind of, um, I was very shy, so I always was kind of like longing to be the person down in the clubs having fun, but I hadn't outgrown that. I wouldn't outgrow that for years. Anyway, we came back to the States. I was living in LA. I was about 15. Um, Went to school there, everything, and we had a dog, and I remember tying him up sometimes in the morning and coming back after school, and he would still be barking. And I don't know if anybody ever complained. We had a neighbor that worked on their car a lot, but it never, noise as a rule never bothered me. And then, so then I joined the army and I went over to Germany, and that's when it started. I was staying in the barracks, and one of the guys I was bunked with, it was a three-man room, and one of the guys would play these two albums back to back. It was either Hank Williams' Greatest Hits or it would be Styx album. And he would play it on the turntable in the go, because this was like 85. So it would play and then it would go back and it would start and it would just drive me crazy. I couldn't sleep at night. But I was like, I had like no rank and I never said anything. I just suffered through it. And then other little things bothered me in the barracks, like some of the noise. I remember in Germany, a couple of times I actually stayed in a hotel when I could. And I remember thinking, I would re-enlist, but I can't live in the barracks with that noise. But it was nothing specific. Got out, lived in Pasadena, got an apartment. I started to notice that some of the neighbors like partied like pretty late, and it was bothering me. Like they would wrestle and stuff late at night, and I would crank up my stereo and stuff. That's when it really started bothering me. Then I moved into another place in Pasadena, and it was like communal living, but everybody had a room, and the guy next to me had like this powerful stereo system, and he would blast it at night, and he was kind of like, let's just say I didn't want to mess with him, so I just kind of kept my mouth shut. But that really kicked it off, and that's when I started noticing like people's television noises, their radios, and things like that. But even that kind of like faded away after I moved to Orange County. Then something else would pick up, like it would be that dog barking repeatedly. Like, why doesn't somebody do something about that dog? Then went to law school. I changed from a first floor apartment to a third floor apartment because on the first floor, the people above me were walking all the time, and it was making me insane. So I had to move to a third floor. By and large, I was okay. As long as I knew a dog was not a domestic dog, if I heard a domestic dog barking, it would bother me. But if I heard like a coyote's barking, it didn't bother me. It was like, it had something to do with like them being agents of people or something, or territorialism or something. So anyway, I graduated law school, I moved to Vegas. And I've got this dream in Vegas that I'm gonna open up this cafe and it's gonna have no music. Because everywhere I go, everybody's just blasting. It's like everything here is just, shoe stores are blasting music, barbershops are blasting music, cafes, restaurants. And I think, and it was just driving me crazy. And I think what bothered me more was that there were no options. If there had been like one or two places that gave me that option, I probably wouldn't have been as angry, but I was really angry that it was like, there's just no options. I can't go anywhere and just enjoy the sounds of, ambient noise. It's always somebody pounding music. And the cell phones, it started to bother me. When people would play their cell phone and I'd hear the speaker, it was like a snake in my ear, and it felt like it was just like something was about to like attack me. And sometimes I couldn't be in a room, but the scariest thing was that I couldn't always sit through it. I was always afraid I was going to explode and I was going to make the 6 o'clock news. Young attorney loses. So anyway, yeah, the cell phone noises were really getting bad, and I was living in this country club place, and I was on the bottom floor, and it was fine because I didn't have any direct neighbors at first. But then I realized that the upstairs neighbors would come like just on their vacations, and it would just drive me nuts. The constant bumping and and dropping of things and the creaking of the floor. And they didn't even play music. And I remember it got so bad that I stayed in a hotel one night, and then somebody in there started playing their TV loud. And at that point, I think we were trying some kind of medication called quetiapine or something. So I had to get off of that because it was making me crazier. But I had to move from there, and I moved to a residential place. And I thought it was going to be quiet. It was like a converted garage. And then I realized that some of the people had like stage equipment in the back, and they would throw these loud like home concerts, and that drove me crazy. And I would have to like blast my music to like mask so that I couldn't follow the beat, because if I could follow the beat, it was like, but if I didn't know where the noise was coming from, so that was another aspect. It's like if I knew a sound was like real versus artificial, I could withstand the real, but I couldn't withstand the artificial. It was like it would make all the difference in the world, and it made no sense. And then finally I'd been sleeping on the couch for like almost a year, and then I decided to finally start sleeping in my bedroom, and it was peaceful and quiet. And then the neighbor decided to get a full-grown dog that liked to bark at night. So I moved out of there, and I moved into this place, which is 55 plus community, which is quiet. However, in my hastiness, I got the corner house, which is actually next to an intersection on the other side, in a 7-Eleven, and kind of like a pretty loud neighborhood. And it didn't take long before I realized that every car that was stopping at the intersection was just pumping the bass. And then people were going to 7-Eleven, 3 o'clock in the morning, they're just leaving the cars in the parking lot trembling. And it's just driving me crazy. And I mean, it got bad. It got to where I was like, I really felt like this was something in my amygdala that was never going to be removed. It was fused. You couldn't diagnose it out. I was going to several therapists. They were trying parts in therapy. They were trying CBD or CBT. But finally, I got boosted up on Prozac to 90, I think to 90 milligrams. And I'd been on Prozac before, so I was kind of like, another one of these, we'll go down that road and nothing's really going to happen. But this time I got off to statins too, because I realized that statins were driving me crazy. By the way, yeah, I forgot to mention that statins also drive me crazy. So no statins for me. I can't take that. So I got off of that, and I have a few other meds. I started taking magnesium. I read somewhere, so I went to a health store, bought that. I started taking melatonin, and I started taking magnesium, melatonin. I think some CBD oil I tried even. And at first I wasn't getting results, but then little by little it was like and I started reading a lot of Shakespeare. So I went through this thing where I was going to filter the whole world through Shakespeare. So I was going to like reinterpret the noise outside of me as like the noise on the island in The Tempest. I was going to like reinvent so that I could like deal with the noise, because this is how crazy it would make me. And little by little, it was just, I started realizing that I could withstand certain situations. Like I could go into a restaurant knowing that it was going to be the TV playing, the music in the back playing, and somebody's phone over here and somebody's phone over there, and that I was going to be gritting my teeth. But it became easier to think about the fact that it's not going to last forever. Then it became easier between the actual noises, because part of my thing is that I'm always worried about when the noises are going to come, even if it's not noisy. So I started getting more relaxed between the noises. And I was doing a lot of writing. I'm kind of a rhymester, and I like to rhyme. My rhyme, it got stuck for a minute there, and then it just exploded. And it was just like, it was like almost like it just occurred to me one day. And I looked at things, and I realized I'd always heard that I was judgmental, and I'd always heard that even my therapist was like, if you don't have all these rules about society, then society can't bother you, blah, blah, blah. And I would say, but I'm progressive, I'm liberal, I'm like as like left as it gets. Like I'm all for let's live in New York with all kinds of music and noise and hey. But in reality, I couldn't. In reality, I was like dreaming of living in like a cabin in Montana by myself, like 5 miles away from the nearest person. So I couldn't see whether there was any kind of inflexibility, but I started to notice that it wasn't inflexibility so much about a particular rule, it's the whole framework. And what's happening is that when I live in a world where things are predominantly labeled as good and evil, even though sometimes we'll admittedly agree, well, we know it's no real good and evil, but still we function as if we do. When you start to do that, it actually like um, it hurts you. It creates this binary system where you deny yourself the ability to think things that are contrary to your values or what you think is good. And so you deny yourself some of the freedoms um, associated with that. Like I've always known that when I was a kid, I would play my stereo loud in my car. I used to love that stuff. Um, but I just had like no sympathy. But now it was just like I just didn't care. I wanted the noise to stop. I didn't care what it took. Like not I didn't care what it took, and I was always afraid of that feeling that I didn't care what it took to stop the noise. Um, and sometimes I would try to visualize myself in as those people. But this time it became easier. Once I stopped with the good and bad, it just got easier to say, I could see like why I could see myself in that car doing the same thing right now just to soothe myself. And it became aware that I became aware that, there's this other YouTube video where this guy does a body language analysis and he likes to use the term self-soothing. And I realized that's all we're doing is even when we're creating problems, we're actually trying not to. We're actually self-soothing. We're actually doing the most comfortable thing that we know given what we have. The problem is that when you have this whole framework between you and reality, that's like good and bad, good and bad, good and bad, you can't go straight through to the comfort. You can't identify what will make you comfortable and go straight to it because you have to work out this whole structure every time. And you have to figure out what to be ashamed of and what to be proud of and who to praise and who to worship and what not to worship and what standards to live up to, what family standards and stuff like that. And it just gets in the way. But when you remove that, when you stop allowing that and you start migrating towards the comfort scale, you start to realize that at first it feels really rocky and it's going to throw you off. It's kind of like a car with spinning tires just making contact with the road. It's just going to like, skid out a little bit before it learns to drive on it smoothly. And that's what I'm learning is that when you move towards the comfortability scale or model, you just look for comfort. You just start going, what would actually make me comfortable in this situation? Not based on what society thinks or my mom or my teachers or my professors or what would actually make me comfortable. And then once you know that, you can start making a decision that is actually saner than any decision you would make if you were stuck in the moral scale. And I guarantee you, it'll actually be more moral per the standards of the morality scale if you use the comfort scale. Because when you want to be comfortable, you want to make other people comfortable. So you actually become more empathic of other people. So for me, 3 things have worked, and right now, there's traffic going by right by my window right now. I don't care. I love my house. I can actually move now. My lease is up. I couldn't wait for my lease to be up. Now, I have no plans to move anytime soon. I'm happy. I'm comfortable. I hope it lasts. I can't tell you if it's just the Prozac or the magnesium or if it was the Shakespeare or what, but I think what's helping me every day is I just realize the world isn't really about that black and white world of morals. It's about comfort. And as long as I'm prioritizing comfort in my life, I feel like I'm dealing with things better. I'm not reacting. And that's another thing, because basically what my body was doing with noise is just reacting. It's just like when somebody says, if someone insults your mom, just react. Or if someone uses this word around you, just react. And that was part of my life because that was part of that morality model, was that there's certain words that just, once you hear them, you're triggered and don't think twice, or you're not a real this, or you're not a real that, or blah, blah, blah. And that was actually what was embedded in my thinking. And that's what was causing me to react to these things is I thought, there were just certain things off limits. Even though these things are just airy nothings, they're just words, they're just people talking. So once I learned, I'm learning every day. One of the things, the side effects right now that I'm realizing from this new mindset is that I'm very efficiency oriented. So I tend to have a very short temper. I guess temper, yeah, I guess I'm telling on myself, a temper with people that waste time. Like when I order food and I have to repeat again, yes, it's to go. Again, I said a Pepsi. Again. And I don't know if it's just like the customer service rebellion right now going on, or me, or what, but I find that a lot. And I find that it's not bothering other people. It's as if the world looks like it's changed to me, but everybody else is like, no, it's always dragged like this. People have always followed up everything with another by repeating the question. And I have to kind of learn to deal with that. That's really the hard part right now, because I have to incorporate that into my idea of comfort. I have to take people as I find them, not as I wish they were. And that's pretty tough, but I'll get back to you on that. Thanks.